The film opens with famous singer Grace Davis performing her hit song Bad Girl. Grace's assistant Maggie is in the recording studio, and she tells the sound manager to adjust the settings. They groove together as the beat hits, but unfortunately, they are interrupted by another band. Maggie walks out as she curses at them in her mind. She runs outside as she checks her phone for messages and gets on her yellow car. She first picks up the golden dress, some healthy drinks, jewelry, and a few medicines. While driving her car, Maggie checks the board of her favorite singer Grace Davis and reaches the house. She drops all the things and asks for keys from the house nanny, but the house nanny insists on finishing her drink first. She gets the other car and reaches the airport. Firstly, she receives the manager Jack, and her favorite singer Grace comes down. Maggie gives her the drink, but Grace tells her to throw it away. Going back, Grace drives the car while she eats a burger. Grace and Maggie then proceed to go through things that Grace needs to do. The house is all decorated for a party, and Maggie takes a drink. Grace gives her the look, so Maggie spits the drink and places it back. Meanwhile, Jack is planning how to eat the cake. Maggie shares her opinion for Grace to record a new album since she hasn't done so in a decade. Jack dismisses all of Maggie's suggestions and essentially tells her to know her place. Maggie drives her yellow car back while listening to sad songs. Back at home, Maggie continues to work on Grace's songs. Her roommate Katie walks in annoyed and throws the headphones at Maggie, telling her to keep it down. Maggie uses her preset settings to edit the song all night. She wakes up as the alarm goes off. She sits with Grace on the private plane and uses the chance to convey what Jack told her the other day. But hearing this, Jack intervenes and tells Maggie to get back to her own seat. Jack sits down next to Grace and opens his bag. Grace takes out a candy and happily bits into it. Jack asks her to walk through her set list, but Grace insists on having another candy rather than doing what he said. Jack takes his bag but bites off the candy before giving it to her. Grace is set to perform, and she and her backup dancers are all dressed in red. She performs in Dallas, Atlanta, and Detroit. Maggie reminds her the location during practice. Maggie even dances along to the song backstage. After the show, Maggie helps Grace take an ice bath. Grace's final show is in Miami. After the show, Jack introduces Nathan from Vegas. Grace now learns about Jack's plan to make her stay in Vegas and perform there in the future. But Grace mentions that she likes to tour. Jack wants to take some pressure off of him and asks her to take his advice. Right then, Maggie walks in with the drinks. Jack shoos her off, but Nathan continues to pursue Grace. Hearing them talk, Maggie interrupts them and gets Grace out of there. On their way back, Grace joins Maggie and thanks her for helping her out back in Vegas. Maggie shares that she felt it wasn't right for her. Grace goes into a memory lane, and after all Jack's been through with her, she kind of feels where he's going with his plan with Vegas. They enjoy the talk on their way back. In the morning, Maggie and Katie go for a walk. Maggie picks up her phone and Katie tells her to wake up to reality and go live her own life. Since Maggie's dream to produce a song for Grace can never happen, but Maggie brushes her off, saying that her chance will come. Following this, Maggie visits the grocery store. There, a guy named David approaches Maggie and sings the song being played. Maggie says it isn't her favorite song and walks away. David follows her and asks what her favorite song is and invites Maggie to a party he's having in the weekend. But before she could reply, David runs out. As Maggie walks out, she notices David singing the song she mentioned inside. Maggie goes speechless since he's got a great voice. In the next scene, we find that Grace is sick, and Jack trying his best to talk her into agreeing to his plan. She calls Maggie over to help her out, but seeing Jack not backing down, Grace stands up and walks away, insisting that she will do what she wants to do. Sometime later, Maggie cleans up Grace's bed and she finds a notebook under the pillow. She reads it to realize that Grace has been working on a new song. The next morning, Maggie is late to the studio. Grace meets with a famous producer who presents his own remix of Bad Girl. Grace finds it terrible, and right then, Maggie enters and asks to speak with Grace in private. Maggie tells Grace that she has been working on her songs and gets the go to produce her own version. Jack points out that they can hear them talking. Maggie walks out and insults the producer to his face by telling Grace that she is much better than his work. Grace agrees with her and leaves. As Maggie heads out, Jack reprimands her for ruining his plans that took him months to fix up. Maggie shows her confidence, but Jack scolds her and clarifies that she has to take care of everything on her own. We reach the weekend, and Maggie takes Katie to attend David's party. As soon as they enter, Katie is shocked to look at the place and blames Maggie for not telling David is rich. But right then, a passing lady spills her drink on Maggie's dress. Maggie fixes up her dress in the bathroom where she mentions about inviting David to produce his music. Katie is not okay with her idea, and as soon as they walk out, David catches them. Katie leaves them be after a brief introduction. Seeing David and Maggie talk, a girl walks by to paint his face with her lips. Watching her leave, Maggie mentions how he's already got a girlfriend. However, David clarifies that what they have is nothing serious. Right then, Maggie asks if he's got anything that he's been working on. Maggie listens to his song and smiles. She mentions her liking the song and he's got a great voice. She follows up saying that he needs a new producer. She asks for the files so that she can work on them, but Dave tells her that he needs to visit him next day to watch him play. Maggie doesn't answer and picks up his jacket to distract him, so David makes her drop it and walks her out. The next day, an annoyed Katie throws the headphones once more at Maggie for playing her music out loud. After that, Maggie points out Grace's schedule to the house nanny. She calls her out for lying to her face. Right then, Maggie hears Grace yelling from inside the house. Maggie runs in to find her asking her opinion about the dress. Maggie wants to leave to work on the song, but Grace makes her stay to look through her wardrobe. At this time, David is on stage to perform and he looks out to see whether Maggie is here. She reaches just before he started. After the show, Maggie shares her honest opinion about his performance. David is shocked to actually hear it from her. And right then, Maggie asks him to follow her and takes him to her car. She plays her version of his song from the file she somehow got, and David is shocked to hear his song to actually sound good. Maggie mentions how it has been her long-term goal to produce some good music, and if she could work with him, it would help her dream. David buys in and agrees to work with her. The next day, David works on his song while sitting on the fence. Maggie drops in, starts grooving along, but she shouts, which shocks him, and he falls off the fence. She apologizes but still mentions that it wasn't the best place for him to sit and sing. Following this, David asks her to play for him. The two start to bond over working on his song. After their session, Maggie talks him into start working on his song seriously. But David feels insecure about his song. But Maggie assures that she can help him. Right then, she gets a call and she leaves saying that it was another client. We find that Maggie's gone to pick up Grace. Grace ridicules her about her car, but Maggie finds it curious why everyone finds it that way. Maggie takes her home, and Grace asks Maggie why she stole her jacket. Grace realizes that Maggie was with a guy and asks her to be careful and take care of herself. In the next scene, Grace directs David in the recording studio. David has trouble to sync in with the music. Maggie lets him feel comfortable, and David gets back into the game. With his confidence back on track, David gets it good on the first take. They continue to work on the song further, and also spend time together. Meanwhile, Maggie also bonds with Grace as she continues to take her places and follow her to other events. The two go to a meeting with studio bigwigs over plans for Grace's career going forward. She admits that she wants to record a new album, but the others are clearly not on board with the idea. Jack turns to the head exec and asks his opinion, which leans toward Grace doing the Vegas gig. Grace goes along with them at the time, and later goes to the bathroom for a breather until Maggie joins her. Maggie tries to fight for Grace, but Grace feels it works better in her interest to do what the guys say because they don't feel that someone of her age and race could have as much success with more touring and recording. When Maggie mentions she's read some of Grace's new music, Grace gets upset at Maggie for getting into her business and reminds her that she is nothing more than an assistant, which hurts Maggie. Maggie turns up late to the studio to record with David, but she breaks down from the stress with Grace. David goes outside to comfort her, and he is shocked to find her in tears. David questions her of having second thoughts about working with him. She denies that being the reason and admits she doesn't know what she's doing. David helps her get back her fire and invites her back inside. David sings the song, but Maggie feels something missing. David eventually gets Maggie to sing backups with him. After the recording, the two make out outside and go home together. Maggie wakes up to find that the opening singer to Grace's tour will not be turning up. Grace blames it on Maggie that it's all her fault moving around with lack of focus for the past couple weeks. Maggie promises to find her a better replacement, and Grace doesn't care whoever it is, and asks her to find someone no matter what. Maggie confirms another singer, Dan Deacons, as the opener, but she has an idea pop up. Maggie soon finds Dan's assistant, and goes off about her plan to make him help her get Dan to drop out at the last minute so that she can get David to perform and change their lives. However, Dan, who happens to walk by, listens to her whole plan. Dan immediately asks to listen to David's song. He agrees with her plan soon after a single listen, and Maggie is shocked to discover his helping nature. Dan leaves after wishing her good luck. On the night of the party, Maggie reveals to Jack about Dan not able to make it. She reveals to Jack that he's got a plan B. David soon arrives at the party, but Maggie decides to come clean to David about not being a producer and just being Grace's assistant. Hearing Grace's name, David gets upset with Maggie and calls her out for lying to him and using him for her means. Maggie has to break the news to Grace, who expresses the utmost disappointment before firing Maggie. Grace goes on stage to open for herself, and Maggie goes back home the next day. Katie helps her clear all her stuff. Maggie decides decides to move back in with her father Max, who works at the local radio station. Max welcomes her back home and he tries his best to get her back. Soon, we find Grace and the house nanny discuss about Maggie. Grace is surprised to find the house nanny defend Maggie, and Grace starts to think that she might have made a mistake in firing her. Maggie, on the other hand, starts at the radio station while Max relaxes at home. Maggie talks with Max about working with Grace, and he makes her realize what an opportunity she had working with Grace. Maggie calls Grace to apologize, but it goes straight to voice call. Following that, she calls David to apologize and let him know where she was. Soon, Maggie gets a knock on her door, and while she opens it thinking it was David, Maggie is surprised to find Grace come in to ask her to come back to work for her. Grace tells Maggie that she missed her, and that she didn't realize what a presence Maggie was around her. Grace goes on to mention that she heard her version of the songs and that she really loved them. Grace also mentions that she had never worked with a female producer, and that she would live to work with one now. We soon find Maggie playing the piano and Grace singing her new song for her. As soon as she finishes, Maggie walks out, hearing the knock on the door. David walks in surprised, mentioning how he failed to notice her mention Dan Deacons loved his song. Right then, Grace walks out to call out to David, and in turn he calls her mom. Maggie is surprised by this finding, and Grace soon finds that Maggie and David have been working together. Maggie and David head out to call out each other for not revealing who they were. We also find Grace pointing out remembering Max interviewing her all those years ago, and that his wife was pregnant at the time. Max points out his daughter turned out to be Maggie, make them realize how small the world is. Following this, Grace reveals about having Max and his father did not want to reveal their relationship back then, since it was the time her career took off. In the following scene, we find David perform his song on stage, and before he goes off stage, he tells the audience about a big surprise. Maggie thinks that he might call her out, but he surprises everyone including Maggie by calling out Grace on stage and revealing her as his mother. Jack turns up backstage as well to watch them perform David's song together. As the crowd goes crazy, Jack reveals to Maggie how Grace had wanted to do this for a long time. Grace thanks Maggie as they continue to perform. The movie comes to a close with Maggie producing Grace's new song. Jack grooves, mentioning they are doing great, and Maggie smiles for having got her dream come true. And that is it for this 2020 movie called The High Note, a charming and heartfelt dramedy that offers a fresh take on the music industry, blending themes of ambition, personal growth, and the challenges faced by aging artists, particularly women of color. One of the film's highlights is its music. Ross performs her own songs showcasing her vocal abilities, and the soundtrack as a whole is infectious, with original songs that feel authentic to the world of R&B and pop. The film's depiction of the behind-the-scenes workings of the music industry, from remixes to label politics, is insightful, though at times a bit surface level. In summary, The High Note is an enjoyable, feel-good movie that tackles important themes with grace, charm, and a solid cast. It may not break new ground, but its heart is in the right place, and fans of music-driven narratives will find much to enjoy. While it falls into some familiar storytelling tropes, the performances and music elevate it beyond typical fare, making it a pleasant, if not entirely groundbreaking experience. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you again in the next video. Until then, this is your host for Movie Recap, signing off.